It's Yojo June. What does Hasbro have in store for us? Welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today, we're talking about some toy news, as well as a few items that are new to the collection. It's Yojo June, and that means Hasbro is going to be announcing a lot of new stuff for G.I. Joe Classifieds throughout the month. They had one fan cast already. Some of the stuff they talked about was new. A lot of it was stuff we already had seen, but there was, some new digital renders and some product in hand and things like that, which is great. I love to see new stuff rolling out. The first thing that went up for pre-order was the MMS and Hawk. Now, the mobile missile system, which is a towable rocket launcher vehicle type thing, was released already in black to go with the HISS tank as the SMS, and now the MSS, the MMS, wow, the MMS is being released in green with Colonel Hawk, which is basically the way it was released in 1982. So we're getting a younger version of Hawk, not the old grizzled General Hawk that we've got already in Classifieds, more in his standard green shirt uniform. And I'm pretty excited for this. I had Hawk and the MMS as a kid. He's a core character. I think a lot of fans are hoping they eventually do all the green shirts. I hear a lot of people begging for Flash pretty commonly. And this gets them a helmet with a visor, and that flips up and down. It looks really good. So I'm pretty excited for Hawk and the MMS. I did pre-order that. The next thing that went up for pre-order was the Deluxe Kyle Budo Gesso. This is a deluxe figure of the samurai character Budo from the original line. And he comes with a lot of extra parts, which is why he's a deluxe figure. And those parts kind of give him several different looks. There's a look that's a little bit more like his traditional action figure, who has some armor on his chest and things like that, but mostly just has the samurai helmet. But there have been other versions since then that are much more traditional samurai, full samurai garb. And that's kind of how this one comes. He has different types of armor and masks and things you can put on him to give him a lot of different looks. They also are going with sort of a Lost Ronin type of look here, where there's a head that has his hair hanging down, a little bit of facial hair. But he does come with the regular head with the top knot and multiple helmets and all kinds of different configurations. He looks pretty cool. I did not have Budo as a kid, but my best friend Derek did, and Budo inspired the very first Dungeons & Dragons character I ever had as a kid. I've wanted to find a vintage Budo and custom paint it to look like my D&D character, and I never have done that. And it crossed my mind with this guy, but I don't think I'm going to custom paint a Classifieds figure. It's bad enough with O-ring figures with the paint scraping off in their elbows and stuff, but Classifieds have even more articulation, and I'd be buying this deluxe figure to get rid of most of his gear to just strip him down to, what looks the most like the original figure. It is cool. He comes with some weapons, not just the samurai weapons, but also some guns, because Budo is technically an infantry trooper in G.I. Joe, so he probably would have a gun with him as well as his sword, maybe. He's another one of those classic, the sports guys, Hardball, just goofy enough to be beloved, but not really traditional military. The other item that went up for pre-order is the Ninja Force 2-pack with Slice and Dice. These guys are Cobra ninjas that came out during the Ninja Force era. Slice got a repaint as a Slice version 2, and Dice got a repaint as another character, which was a little bit odd. He was the quote-unquote Red Ninja of Ninja Force. But these guys look really good. They come with a ton of accessories. They also come with some alternate looks. There's a rice patty hat. There's a dragon mask. In the fan cast, they talk about mixing and matching parts to make army builders out of them. I'm sure there's somebody out there looking to do that. Again, I want to strip these guys down to their most quintessential vintage figure. It's a little funny because Classifieds really is about giving guys new looks, but I just really want retro-style versions of everybody, so the most retro version I can get them is cool with me. One little detail that I did see that I really like is that the sai that was sculpted real tiny on Slice's wrist on his original action figure is now a removable accessory. That's pretty nice, and that is kind of what Classifieds is all about, is making those little details work and be better, and so I do like that a lot. During the fan cast, they also showed off the Cold Slither San Diego Comic-Con set. This is a rock and roll band made by the Dreadnoks. This was a wacky plot point in the cartoon, but one of the most memorable episodes. People talk about it all the time. They're a band of vipers. I'll spare you the singing. But Cold Slither's super cool. Super 7 just gave us the O-Ring Zartan, but Hasbro's going to give us the full set of Dreadnoks with all their instruments and stuff. They look super cool. I'm hoping that that's not impossible to get a hold of. During the fan cast, Hasbro talked about the All-Striker. They're still only showing the digital render, but they did talk about the back seat being removable and the top roll cage to make it look a little bit more like the original figure. They did talk about the back seat being removable and the extended roll cage to make it more like its vintage look. The front end is extended and shaped a little bit differently because it's based on a more modern military vehicle now, because Classifieds is definitely trying to move G.I. Joe out of the 80s and into, more modern era. They did also say the tires will be rubber. They're sort of doing them like an RC car has those squishy rubber tires, so that's kind of cool. I think I'm passing on the All-Striker. I just don't have the space for a ton of vehicles, and the All-Striker has never been my favorite. We have the Vamp already, so I have sort of a Jeep for my Joes. They'd have to do something a little different, I think, to get my attention. They showed off a digital render for a 60th anniversary Legacy police officer. So this is sort of a standard police uniform figure that can then be put on with SWAT gear and make him look more tactical and more military. This kind of goes along with the firefighter that they had just done. So this 60th anniversary Legacy collection had a Marine and a paratrooper and a frogman, and now they're getting into some of these more civilian but tangentially related fields like the firefighter and the police. I think that's cool. There's a need for good firefighter and police action figures for kids to have access to. There's also a need in toy photography and dioramas and stuff like that to have some of those support role type people. I used to do stop motion animated videos with toys, and I always had a hard time finding plain clothed people, to not have a guy with holsters strapped on him, to get just civilians, or to get, a police officer or firefighter, something like that. It's pretty cool. The other digital render they had was Sergeant Slaughter, and I was really hoping we were going to get him in his version 3 outfit from the Warthog. They went with one that's similar, but it's the convention version of him. They're calling it the Renegades version. At one of the Joe Fests, while they were still doing O-Ring exclusives, there was a year where they did a Sergeant Slaughter figure, and they did a Renegades pack, and they used I think the 90s gung-ho body that had the V-neck where originally they put the Marine tattoo on his chest, and it had a bandolier and stuff like that. They used that body for Sarge, and maybe some of those parts even on the Renegades. But this pack will come with Sergeant Slaughter. He's got like desert camo pants. He's got like a vest. He's got the bandolier. He's coming with a head that has the whistle in his mouth, which I kind of like that idea. He's also coming with a red beret. I think there's some wrestling reference that goes with that. And of course, the set's also going to include Mercer, the ex-Cobra Viper, who's now a Joe. They claim they've added a spider web tattoo to him because Lenny can't not put tattoos on everybody. He looks pretty good. I wish his flat top was maybe just a little bit bigger. For some reason, as a kid, I loved the fact that the figure had a flat top. And when Guile came out with Street Fighter, or I found out about Street Fighter 2, I didn't need Mercer to have quite as big of a flat top as Guile, but I kind of always imagined it being, somewhere in the middle there. And so I would have loved if this classified figure had just a little bit more of that flat top, but he looks pretty good. He comes with 2 different heads, and the pack comes with a ton of weapons. We've also had a tease a while back of the next Haslab for G.I. Joe. Fans seem to be going crazy that it's going to be a Snowcat and maybe come with multiple figures. They did not announce anything yet, but there are multiple weeks of Yojo June left to go. So we'll see. I have a feeling whatever the next Haslab vehicle will be will get announced, and we'll see what they're offering, whether I jump on it. Like I said, if it needs to be something different, it can't be like a Jeep. Snowcat is interesting, as I love the Snowcat, and I like the Snow Joes a lot, but it also always feels a little weird. The environment-specific guys sometimes are harder to work into the display. We have an amazing snow job already. I don't know. I'm very up in the air, but I can't wait to see it. I hope it blows me away. I don't want to skip a lot of classified stuff, but I am under the reality of down here in this basement, there's more stuff than I can reasonably display, and I have to make some decisions on what can be displayed and what can't be displayed. And it's really starting to bug me the way the basement is. I really want it to be more functional and not have so much stuff just sitting around. So that's one of those things where I go back and forth. Do I want to buy another big thing because I'm already having trouble displaying what's here? So let's hope they wow me. The other big toy news that came out of Hasbro this week was all in celebration of Ghostbuster Day. There was so much news about screen-used Ecto-1s being in parades and different events all over the place like last week. And this Ghostbuster Day thing is really like going hard. Like they're making this a big deal, and I guess that makes sense. If they can get this brand really re-energized and really capture the market of the current fans, the people that grew up with the movies in the 80s, but also the kids that they're bringing in with some of the newer movies, they can have a pretty powerful brand on their hand. And with the movie industry the way it is, where they need franchises, they need these brands to just keep going. So there was a huge celebration at Hook and Ladder 8 in New York City, the actual exterior of the Ghostbuster Firehouse, and Hasbro announced some new product. One of those things was the Ghostbusters Plasma Series Proton Pack. This is a role-play or replica proton pack with the neutrino wand. It looks pretty good. This is definitely something we've seen a couple times now. There was a Haslab. There was a version made by Matty Collector, I think. Proton packs and stuff are very popular. There's a lot of people that cosplay as Ghostbusters. I had the little kid blue Kenner one as a kid. Loved it. So they're going to sell an adult proton pack. I don't have a ton of the details about features and cost and all that other stuff. But it looks pretty cool, and it's neat for the Ghostbuster fans. If you don't already own a proton pack, there's one that's going to be available. They also announced the Ghostbusters Plasma Series Rooftop Showdown set. This comes with all 4 Ghostbusters in their Ghostbusting uniforms based on the end of the Ghostbusters movie when they go to battle Gozer. You're getting Egon, Peter, Ray, and Winston all decked out. They all come with their proton packs. They come with a few other accessories like a trap and a PKE meter and the Ecto goggles. They look pretty good. I think it's smart of them to keep those core Ghostbusters available through different types of releases. I don't know how similar or different these are to previous Plasma Series figures. They do, I believe, have all new heads. Some of them I think look great. I don't know about the Venkman one, whether it doesn't scream Bill Murray to me when I look at it, but of course it's a digital render. I have a ton of the Kenner Ghostbusters, and I also have the Matty Collector Ghostbusters 1 and 2 figures, and it keeps me from buying more. These guys look great, but do I need multiple sets of the Ghostbusters when they all are just wearing the standard jumpsuits? I had bought some other scale Ghostbusters at one point in time. Back when Toys R Us was open, I eventually got rid of those. They even had the doll-style ones. They were based more on the cartoon series, but they had done the Mego-style ones. Ghostbusters, I love the idea of it. I love the franchise. The movies are great. Not my top-tier IP, though. Like, I like Ghostbusters a lot, but it's not to the point where I can just keep giving up space to it. So I definitely try to make good decisions about what I buy. And because I have the Mattel Ghostbusters, I'm not jumping into the Plasma Series. I've pretty much avoided it completely. But these do look good, and I'm excited for Ghostbuster fans out there that are looking for them. We also heard a little while back that Hasbro is going to be reissuing the Ectoglow Ghostbusters. These are Kenner Ghostbuster figures from the end of the line, made in like glow-in-the-dark plastic. They're really goofy. And the original ones are really rare. I don't have the originals. They are popular, so it makes sense from a Hasbro standpoint. Maybe it's going to annoy collectors because a lot of people will go, oh, well, I have the new ones. Why would I go back and hunt the old ones? And then the value might drop. That has actually happened with the reissue Ecto 1. You could buy a modern Ecto 1 that looked just like the original, and it was nice and white, and it was like $25 at Walmart. So why pay $150 for a dingy, slightly yellowed one from the 80s? But they made all those molds. They remolded all of the Ghostbuster bodies and Ecto 1 and Stay Puft and all these other guys back, I don't know, was that right after the pandemic was over? Or, oh my gosh, was that pre-pandemic? Yikes, I can't even remember. But they're going to re-release the Ghostbusters in the Ectoglow style with, some accessories that are appropriate for the Ectoglow figures. But what they announced on Ghostbuster Day is an Ectoglow Ecto 1. So this is the Kenner Ecto 1 car toy, painted up or molded up in glow-in-the-dark plastic with some details that kind of go with those figures. It's a pretty wacky idea, but it makes total sense. They've retooled that when they did those reissues. The mold's sitting around. They might as well run something off if they're going to sell Ectoglow. They did Fright Features figures not too long ago. I think people thought maybe they would go in order, but they did the original figures, reissues of the original figures. They did reissues of the Fright Features, and now they're skipping to the end for Ectoglow. I don't know whether we'll see other styles of Ghostbusters and other, new decos for Ecto 1 at some point, but for right now, we're getting Ecto 1, Ectoglow. I might have to get it. I might have to get it, because it's kind of cool looking. And there was a sign about some additional announcements kind of above it. There's definitely a silhouette of the Green Ghost or Slimer and Stay Puft, so are we going to get Ectoglow versions of them? That could be fun. Glow-in-the-dark toys are just cool. And there's another silhouette for another announcement, and that looks like Louis Tully. And Louis has come up several times towards the end of the Ghostbusters Kenner line. They did make a Louis figure who came out in a couple different decos alongside the Ghostbusters, and he was part of the Ectoglow series. So that could be pretty exciting if we get him released at some point as well. We'll probably have to wait till San Diego Comic-Con for more news. The Ecto 1 might be a Comic-Con exclusive, but maybe at that point also they would announce what the ghosts are, or Louis or whatever. They love to stagger out their news. In the comments down below, are you going to pick up any of these new products from Hasbro? What about the G.I. Joe Classified stuff or the Ghostbusters stuff? I do have a few items that are new to my collection. I recently got a G.I. Joe toy made by Mattel. This is the Hot Wheels Pop Culture Sky Striker. Comes in a nice blister card there with a nice bubble on the front. It's a little bit nicer card than a standard Hot Wheel. Also more expensive than a standard Hot Wheel. I got these two in like a brown envelope on a rainy day. This one's in pretty good shape. The other one I opened already was not in as good a shape. But here is the Sky Striker out of the package. No landing gear on this bad boy, but it does come with a flight stand. The wings can spread out, which is cool. I love also the detail painted on the back. Shows the sticker that goes by the switch for popping out the landing gear and the wings. So this is definitely toy inspired. I wonder if they'll reissue it at some point with the black fins or any of the other wacky ways the Sky Striker has been released over the years. Could you imagine if they did the Starscream Sky Striker crossover paint scheme on one of these guys? There's also a really cool Optimus Prime Hot Wheel that's out, and maybe a couple other ones that are in this pop culture line that I'm interested in possibly getting someday. A couple weeks back, I took a look at a bunch of Motu figures from the recent cartoon collection, and I had missed Catra, so I finally got her in. The Jealous Beauty. I bring this up all the time because the She-Ra toy line, girls don't like conflict as much as boys when it comes to toys, and so there were no real bad guys in the She-Ra toy line. Catra was the Jealous Beauty, sort of like the outcast, the rival, but not quite enemy, if you will, the frenemy, perhaps. And so when they went to do the cartoon show, they borrowed the Horde figures from He-Man because they weren't going to get any cartoon time, and they made them into the evil Horde, and Catra became part of that, and it has a totally different, non-toy accurate outfit, which is why I was excited to get this. The back says, as seen in Magic Cats, and the cool thing there is she is transforming into her cat form, which I thought was super cool as a kid. So she comes with Onslaught to Snake Mountain, the mini comic. These are short little adventures that show off all the characters in the wave. So this one has to feature Faker, Leech, and Catra. And those guys are probably look like they're all on the cover there. This comic does feature a lot of different things that have been made and things that have not been made in this line. I think it's pretty exciting for kids that they can get to know a lot of the characters and vehicles and things like that, even if they aren't released yet, or maybe they have some stuff that they've gotten as hand-me-downs from their parents, and so now they can kind of see that stuff in action. I talk about the modular nature of these figures. She popped apart at the waist trying to take her out of the package. Pop her back together there. Catra in her cartoon form, I think it's such a great look. I was really excited when we got a figure like this for the Motu Classics line. But Origins is so much fun because they're in sort of the right size to use with all the vintage figures. So it's good to get her in this style. She's got red paint on her dress, but the boots are just molded in a red plastic. The dress might actually be molded in red with additional red paint that's sort of glossy on some of the details there. She has a cape. Not the same cape as Frosta. I thought maybe she might share a cape with her, but it looks like it's a different sculpt. And she has her mask, and the mask is its own piece, which is really exciting because to transform, she has to pull it over her face. This doesn't seem super easy to do, but it does fit. And so that is kind of fun that she can actually do her, her action, her motion to transform. And we get a pack-in buddy here, which is the cat form. Obviously way out of scale. When she transforms, she doesn't become like a little house cat. She becomes like a mountain lion or a panther that still wears the mask. It's a little reminiscent of Battle Cat with the armor and the mask. I never got the feeling that she was as big as Battle Cat, but she was definitely much bigger than this. But I'll take it. This was really one of the big reasons why I wanted to get this, because we've never had the cat form as a toy before, and I really like that we have that now. It's kind of a fun childhood moment. Realized I always loved the He-Man show, and then the She-Ra show that came on after that was done, and all the characters from those series, their iconic looks, the Filmation looks, are fantastic. The last thing I have to show off today is another Motu figure. This is a Mattel Creations figure. It is Despara, powerful captain of the evil horde. So, in the original cartoon content for He-Man and She-Ra, Adora, the woman that turns into She-Ra, was part of the evil horde. She was raised by the evil horde. She doesn't find out that she's He-Man's sister until much later, or, get access to the Sword of Protection and be able to transform into She-Ra, and kind of realize that the horde is not good, right? In their own eyes, they're doing the right thing, and the rebels are, rebels, and they're doing bad stuff, but once she sees kind of the horde's tactics, and she can take off the rose-colored glasses and see the horde is really a bad thing, she becomes She-Ra. There is some alternate storytelling with some comic books that came out during the Motu Classics era, where She-Ra was a character named Despara before that, and wears this Hordak-esque suit of armor. It's a really cool alternative look. Makes her sort of like a total badass character, and I think it's pretty neat. We do have her in Motu Classics, but now we have her in Origins. Probably one of the more popular recent creations for the character selection. So this has that collector-friendly packaging. Great picture of Despara on the box there in action. She does come with her own mini comic, which I think is really neat with the Mattel Creation stuff. The regular figures have their mini comics by wave, but these characters get a mini comic book as well. Phantoms of Despara, and it's got Despara and She-Ra, and Despara in her with her mask on in the middle there. There's a nice image there of She-Ra sort of seeing her face split in a mirror there with Despara. Kind of cool. There's some images that show sort of the original Crystal Castle here. They show Shadow Weaver and the Horde Troopers. He-Man's in this. Teela, Man-at-Arms. So it's pretty cool. I haven't read the whole story here. It seems like a flashback or a dream sequence or a battle within the mind between She-Ra's current identity and her past. Alright, so we've got Despara out of the package. It looks like she's got a lot of new parts, although some of these details are just painted on. So maybe it's not as many new parts as I first thought. Some stuff is definitely new, I think. Her boots seem to be new. They have like these high knee pads on them. But her upper leg and her forearms and stuff, the details are just painted on there, it looks like. She's got some armor. She's got her mask. This mask is truly a mask and not really a helmet because you can see her head is exposed on the back. That's a little bit disappointing. I like the idea of it fitting on better. This does kind of give it a nod to the She-Ra mask from the vintage figure. And also, you know, it probably just helps make it be the right size, because a lot of times if they need to make a helmet big enough to fit over an actual head, then the helmets look kind of goofy in size. So from a toy making perspective, I kind of get it, but it's a little bit disappointing. There's like little tabs that just fit over her ears to help snug it on there. But when I peel that off, you get She-Ra's face with the short haircut and some eye makeup on there. She looks pretty good. So she also comes with 2 swords, and they can fit in little slots on her back there above the cape. As soon as I opened the package, I thought, oh, these look like Triclops swords, and I believe they are Triclops' sword being reused here. So a little bit of a cut corner. They seem a little bit large for her. With the small frame of a female character, these swords seem awfully big. I'm going to throw one in her hand and see how that looks. I don't mind part reusage. It's definitely part of the Masters of the Universe way. But these swords are literally wider than her arms or pretty much her legs. So those are some heavy swords to give her. I don't know. I might have wanted to tool up a new sword. I also think her mask would have really benefited from some sort of a wash to pick out the details in the Hordak-esque face. But I think she looks great without it, and she looks good with it, too. I don't know. Which way would you guys display her? Would you display her with her identity revealed or with the mask on? You could probably find a way to have her sort of cradle the helmet if you're displaying her without it on. Oops, I dropped it, so she's not going to cradle it. Well, it's almost summer. I'm looking forward to having some time off work. Hopefully I can put a little bit more energy into the basement, a little more energy into the channel here and there where I can, alongside other responsibilities with the family and things like that. So I definitely am trying to set up some shoots with some guests. You know, we did a couple episodes with Alex recently, and those were big successes. Trying to plan something with Tony from Hack the Movies. So we'll see what comes, but I really appreciate you guys watching. Do me a favor, hit the like button. That lets YouTube know this is quality content. Subscribe if you haven't done so. If you want to support the channel further, consider joining us on Patreon. But most of all, thanks for hanging on the peg with me.